Hi, everybody. I'm Arnold Hamilton, editor of the Oklahoma Observer at our offices in Oklahoma City, along with our longtime Tulsa correspondent Richard Fricker, author of 3 books, including his latest, The Last Day of the War. There you
This
go.
is a shameless promotion.
Absolutely. RichardFricker.com, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. This is the first of our new regular video sessions on okobserver.net that will review the hottest news. We're going to offer inside analysis and perspective that you can't get anywhere else in Oklahoma. Today we're taking a look at a remarkable new statewide poll that's getting zero traction in the mainstream media, but may signal that Oklahomans are beginning to recognize the futility of the war on drugs and the political power of the prison industrial complex. I'm talking about a Sooner poll commissioned by Normal that shows a vast majority of Oklahomans, both Democrats and Republicans, support legalization of medical marijuana. Now, Richard, you wrote about this in a recent post on our website, www.okobserver.net. How surprising were the survey results?
Well, in one respect, they were very surprising. In another respect, it was kind of preaching to the choir. But there had been the feeling around the state for some time now that voters were not as opposed to medical marijuana as like Senator Crane, who torpedoed the hearings last session, would have people believe, or the prosecutors would have people believe. That part that it was a favorable wasn't a surprise. The surprise was that when you talked about Oklahoma legalizing medical marijuana, it was 71.2% of those surveyed is by Sooner poll, which is generally a Republican polling concern, although they're very legitimate, but that's who they usually work for, and that it cut right across party lines. Republicans, Democrats, and independents were all in favor of legalizing medical marijuana, and 57% were in favor of legalizing marijuana to some degree. In other words, possession of an ounce or 2 ounces, something that has been done in 15 other states. That it was overwhelming. It crossed over education boundaries, income boundaries, political boundaries, most religious boundaries. It was overwhelming. And as we said in our piece, we quoted Senator Constance Johnson. If that's the case and the majority, 71.2%, are in favor of it, then who are these legislators afraid of that they won't even have a hearing on?
So clearly, the people are way ahead of the legislature on this issue in Oklahoma today. The question then becomes, at what point can they be stampeded into finally doing the right thing? Because clearly, our prisons are loaded. We're bankrupting ourselves with putting people who have mere possession of marijuana and get caught 2 or 3 times, loading them up in the penitentiary, and we're costing ourselves a fortune that could be spent on education and highways and other much more important public policy issues.
I think the operative word here is fortune. Prisons are big business.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that traditionally nationwide advocate against legalization of marijuana are pharmaceuticals, vending companies such as those that provide telephone services for prisons, which is outlandish, the people who run the canteens. You talk to former inmates and they'll tell you for an inmate to live reasonably, his family or friends or someone have to put $300 to $500 a month into their account so they can buy the basic necessities, toilet paper, toothpaste, any kind of a snack, reading material, anything. So there again, it's mostly poor people in prison, and here's another tax on poor people. In the meantime, the private prisons are making a bundle, and Oklahoma has a lot of private prisons, and they really like Mary Fallon, and they really like the legislature, and they really like prosecutors that prod judges into giving heavy-handed sentences, because when we sign a contract with a private prison, we guarantee that we will send a certain percentage, or rather a certain number, of our citizens to prison. Now, if that has to be for jaywalking, it'll be for jaywalking. If it has has to be for anything else, it will be. But we are committed to putting our governor commits to put a certain number of our citizens into private prisons. It doesn't matter for what.
So following the money would suggest to you that there's no immediate chance that the stranglehold is going to be broken in this, particularly when you look at the kinds of folks who generally tend to vote in a low turnout Republican primary, which is controlling the political agenda in Oklahoma today.
Right. Well, Senator Kane, when he first told Senator Johnson he'd have a hearing, and everybody thought, okay, at least for the first time in 8 years that she's been doing this, or however many, there's going to be a hearing. Then he backed out because he was running for re-election, and he wanted that so that he can run for Tulsa County District Attorney and still have a job if he loses. Well, I think the political mistake that the good senator's making is by trying to kick these people the marijuana possession, when in fact if he would tell the taxpayer, I'm going to save you money, I endorse this being a misdemeanor, we're going to charge people misdemeanors instead of felonies, he might actually win. Just because people say, if it's costing, however the thousands of dollars it is to keep a prisoner, and we're doing it solely for the benefit of private prisons so they can make money, and marijuana offenders have a very, very low volatility rate, very low, extremely low. It's just playing on fear when he could actually do something very reasonable. He won't, but he could.
Well, there's another political element to this, though, too, of course, and that is, as you mentioned or touched on briefly, prosecutors are loath to lose what's sort of an easy conviction rate that helps their numbers. And then you have a vested interest within state government itself, like the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics, that aren't interested in losing something that allows them to come to lawmakers and say, we need more money to get a hold of this massive drug problem that we have, which is really conjured up.
As Senator Randy Terrell, Representative Randy Terrell, sort of raised the tent on that a little bit. Let everybody look under the tent. When he was promising jobs, he was paying for it out of that bureau's money. That bureau has millions upon millions of dollars unaudited and for the most part unsupervised. And it comes from fines and this wire fee. Anytime someone wires money out of the state or out of the country, they get, a little bit of money. They thought it'd be a little bit. It's a bunch. And if somebody in the legislature wanted to do the taxpayer a favor, they'd go audit these guys and see just how much money they really do have. But in the meantime, the counties pick up a lot of money because of the fines and costs associated with any conviction, any guilty plea, whether it's probation or deferred. Oftentimes, your fees will be more than your fine.
Yeah.
And they're all making money out of it.
Well, and of course, the problem that we have in terms of getting something done for the next legislative session is that we're about to enter an election year. But
yes.
But the numbers suggest that it could be in the offing, so we'll keep an eye on this. And Richard,
I wanted to point out one other thing. There was a second survey came out from California, liberal California, and it was done by a public policy survey. In California, 52% of the state's population favor some form of legalization, and that's several points below conservative Oklahoma.
Isn't that something?
So Oklahoma's ahead of even the old liberal California that everybody likes to point at.
Well, who knows then when the perfect storm could come together to do something about what's really a ridiculous situation that we have here in Oklahoma. And again, I would argue is bankrupting us and keeping us from spending money on really important public policy issues. But we'll be talking about this, I'm sure, more in the weeks and months ahead. And Richard, we'll catch up with you next time.
Sounds good.
Take care.